Senator from Oklahoma.
Mr. President, I've been here this afternoon hoping to get a little bit more time, but right now we're into the final debate on the vote that will take place at 5:30. The senator from Nevada, Senator Ensign, has agreed to let me have 10 minutes, so I ask unanimous consent to speak for 10 minutes as if in morning business.
Mr. President, could we simply point out that we're to go to the bill at 4:30, and I had discussed with my colleague that we have 30 minutes on each side on the bill, and if we could go to the bill and then have my colleague speak on his side's portion of the bill, I think that would be the right approach.
What's that?
All right, Mr. President, I was going to...
Under the previous order, the Senate will resume consideration S1. Senator from Oklahoma is recognized for 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Well, first of all, I had a few stories that I was going to tell about my very good friend who is deceased now, Senator Kennedy. And if there's time before my time expires, I will get into that, but I have a feeling this is going to take place tomorrow or later on tonight. Let me just mention one thing. I think it's so fresh on our minds now after having come back from a recess, the August recess. I did my town meetings in smaller communities in Oklahoma. I was in Stigler, Poto, Chickasha, Grove, Woodward, Guyman, McAllister, Lawton. And I did this because so many times the smaller communities are left out, and I kind of wanted to know what kind of response they had. I made the comment when I was in Grove, Oklahoma, that the very institutions that have historically set aside America from the rest of the country and the rest of the world are the ones that seem to be under attack by this administration. I'm talking about free enterprise. I'm talking about the fact that little government, big people, and all of these things. And as I had these hearings, since my junior senator is Senator Coburn, who is one of the two medical doctors in the United States Senate, I decided to talk about the other issues. My fear is this, Mr. President. Everyone's concerned about socialized medicine. Everyone's concerned about what this president wants to do with the health issues in America. And we're forgetting there are other very serious issues. And so I covered these as opposed to the health problems, because these are things we're going to be dealing with. They're very significant in the Senate in the next few days or weeks. One of them is the cap and trade. Oh, thank you. One of them is the cap and trade issue that we've talked about at some length, and I will get into that in a minute. The other is the closing of Guantanamo Bay Naval, or GITMO as it's known to most people. And the other is what has happened to our military. So let me just real briefly get into these areas. These are three areas that I will be providing leadership. These are the areas of specialty that I have and I'm very much concerned about. First of all, I positioned myself in Afghanistan in February when Secretary of Defense Gates came out with his announcement as to the portion of the president's budget dealing with defense, because I knew I was going to be opposed to it, and I thought that would give me a national forum, and it did. And I was concerned about such things as the C-22, the F-22. Right now, the only fifth-generation fighter we have is an F-22. Initially, we were going to have 750 of them. We now have 187, and the president, in his budget, stopped it right there. Now, he didn't say terminate, but I will use the word terminate, because when you suspend something for an undetermined period of time, I think it's terminated. So that has happened. At the same time that's happening, we know that China is now working on their J-12s, Russia on their PAC-FAs, and these are fifth-generation fighters that they're going to be using to export to countries that could be potential enemies of ours. I looked at the C-17 program, stopping that program. The Future Combat System, we haven't had in America a transition in ground capability in quite some time, about 60 years. And so we've been working on the Future Combat System. that system has been terminated. I think the one that probably has the greatest danger on lives of Americans could probably be the system that we had negotiated with the parliaments of Poland and the Czech Republic. The Czech Republic, we asked them if they would agree to have a radar system to see any kind of incoming missile that might have been coming from Iran. And the second one, and they agreed to do that, and then Poland agreed to have an interception capability in Poland that would knock down such a missile coming from Iran. I don't think there's anyone in America that doesn't realize that Iran is going to have their nuclear capability and delivering systems just as soon as they can. And for the sake of Western Europe and Eastern United States, I think it's critical that we put ourselves in a position to have that capability. Well, he stopped that. So we'll be talking about that for quite some time. GITMO, we cannot, and I think most people realize now that Guantanamo Bay is something that we have had, an asset that we've had since 1903. It has all kinds of capabilities. It's the only place in the world you can put terrorist detainees where you can have a facility built for them, some 7 degrees of security. We have a system there where we can use military tribunals, and I will never understand why this President Obama, is obsessed with bringing these detainees somewhere in the United States, either for trial or for incarceration. For trial, it'd be the worst thing in the world because by definition, a terrorist trains people to become terrorists. And we don't need to have the terrorists in our prison system teaching other people how to become terrorists. Some of the places that he talked about sending them were included in my state, Fort Sill. And we'll talk about that at length some other time. But I do think when we see just a matter of days ago the release of Mohammed Jawad from GITMO, nobody knows, or at least I don't know, and I should know, being the second-ranking member on the Armed Services Committee, as to why he would be released. And we also know that this Mullah Zakir, who was killing American Marines in the Helmand province for quite some period of time, was released, is now back. He went into GITMO in 2006. They released him in 2008. He's back now. We have evidence that is conclusive that he is fighting on the side of the Taliban. And so you can't turn these guys loose. And the third area that I was concentrating on is one, I'll go back, Mr. President, 8 years. Redemption is kind of good for the soul, I think. 8 years ago, when I was looking at the science on the idea that the notion that man-made gases, anthropogenic gases, CO2, methane, cause global warming was something everybody believed, and until I looked into the science, frankly, I believed it too. And now we see that science is not there, and that, and I'd made the statement 8 years ago that perhaps those liberals, mostly from Hollywood and that type of mentality, who want us to believe in the notion that man-made gases cause global warming is the most significant hoax ever perpetrated on the American people. And I think now there are a lot fewer people upset with the statement that I made 8 years ago than there are today. And this is something that is really, really critical. I want to conclude with that, but first of all mention that there's a document that is too long to put into the record, 65 pages. I will have it on my website. This is a brilliant piece done by Robert P. Smith, who's a PhD and a petroleum engineer, talking about the energy crisis and what we can do in the United States to resolve that energy crisis. Such common sense things as continue to conserve and continue to support the free market, oppose the cap and trade taxes, which I'll talk about in a second, oppose the alternative energy subsidies, because we have to continue to supply energy for America while we're developing the technology. So we need to continue coal power generation. We need fast-track oil and gas exploration and use natural gas wisely. So it includes nuclear plants, and I would suggest anyone who is interested in getting into the best piece I've seen on this subject, go onto my website, inhofe.senate.gov, and we have a lot of that information on there. But he does have only 3 pages out of 65 pages debunking the idea that global warming is caused by man-made gases. And I think it is done in a way that is very, very understandable by people who are not necessarily scientists or don't have a background in it. So I strongly recommend this document called Energy, Present and Future by Robert P. Smith to the reading of the American people or anyone who is concerned about that issue. Now, lastly, I really believe, and I sat as prior to the Republicans losing the majority in the United States Senate, I was the chairman of the Environment and Public Works Committee. That chairman is now Senator Barbara Boxer, and she has, since she took over the committee from my leadership.
Senator, it's 10 minutes been used.
Yes, I understand. I have an additional 5 minutes that was given from our side.
Without objection.
Thank you very much. And I will conclude with this, but all of the hearings, over 30 hearings that Senator Boxer has had on the subject of global warming were taking place, and it was not really the Republicans, but a total turnaround in the Democrats starting to look into this and realizing that the Democrats, as a party who always supported cap and trade systems such as the 03 bill, the 05 bill, and the 08 bill, are now looking at it and they're cutting to the chase. I'm going to give you a few quotes. These are all quotes from Democrats. President Obama said electricity prices would necessarily skyrocket. Democrat Representative John Dingell from Michigan said cap and trade is a tax and a great big one. Democrat Representative Pete DeFazio said cap and trade system is prone to market manipulation and speculation without any guarantee of meaningful greenhouse gas emission reductions. And the best one is from my good friend from North Dakota, Democrat Senator Byron Dorgan, when he said that cap and trade, the Wall Street crowd can't wait to sink their teeth into a new trillion-dollar trading market in which hedge funds and investment banks would trade and speculate on carbon credits and securities. And I totally agree with my good friend, Democrat Senator Byron Dorgan. Democrat Senator Cantwell from Washington, quote, a cap and trade program might allow Wall Street to distort carbon markets trade for its own profits. And we learned, of course, Lisa Jackson is the new administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. I asked her the question in a public hearing. I said, if we should pass the Markey bill in the United States Senate and signed into law, would this reduce carbon emissions in the world? And she said no. And logically, obviously, she's right. If we drive our jobs overseas to places like China and India where they have no intention of having any kind of emission requirements, then that would have the effect of increasing, not decreasing the amount of emissions in the air. Senator Kerry said there is no way the United States of America acting alone can solve this problem, so we have to have China and we have to have India. We're not going to have, I say, China and India. Senator McCaskill said if we go too far with this cap and trade, then we're all going to do is chase our jobs to China and India, where they've been putting up coal-fired plants every 10 minutes. Not quite true. It's actually, I say to my good friend, Senator McCaskill, it is about 2 coal-fired generation plants built every week in China. We haven't done one in 12 years here. So we know what their intentions are. So we've had all these hearings. We've recognized that that things have changed now. And you look at the groups now, you have the agricultural community, American Farm Bureau, a vast majority of the agriculture groups oppose it. GAO says it will send our jobs to China and India. The National Black Chamber of Commerce, very eloquent chairman, did a great job of testifying before our committee. He said it would destroy over 2 million jobs. The EPA and the EIA, that's the Energy Information Agency, said it will not reduce our dependence on foreign oil. And the EPA said it'll do nothing to reduce global temperatures. So when all is said and done, the American people will reject it, but we're sure a lot further now. And I have to say this, Mr. President, that this was a breath of fresh air to listen to the American people standing up in these town hall meetings all around the country and in my 12 or 14 meetings that I had in the state of Oklahoma. People know that the right thing is going to happen, and we are here to make that happen. With that, I'll thank the senator from Nevada for allowing me to have 15 minutes of his time. Yield the floor.